Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So we've got a bit of a problem. The car passed its rego inspection fine, but now we have a leaking heater core, which is a common problem on these cars, but I was hoping to escape it, but it wasn't to be. So how I noticed it was the coolant smell inside the car, and pulling out the carpet, pulled out the entire interior really to remove the carpet. You can see there that the footwell, even on the driver's side, was wet and the underlay was saturated, so I've got that in the sun and I'm trying to disinfect and clean that up. But I've also removed some of the underlay that kind of comes down to around here because I just cut it off, so I'll clean that up, the actual sections that I've cut, but couldn't salvage that. Okay, so in the passenger footwell, besides from the smell and the coolant everywhere, it's good to know where the source of the coolant dripping down is, and with the car running and the heater on, it drips down onto this pipe. So it's coming down from there. It's a mystery why the driver's side footwell was saturated, because I can't trace any drips or leaks down that side, but yeah. What I'm going to do is bypass the heater core because I don't have the time to pull the dashboard out. I need my car and it's a big job, so I will probably deal with it in the near future. But at the moment I've just got to solve this problem and get the car put back together. So what I'm going to do is bypass the heater core. So you can see down here, I've got two hoses going into the firewall, that one and the one just below it. So what I'm going to do is drain the coolant out of the engine, disconnect both hoses from the firewall, disconnect one from the engine and route one hose back onto the engine. So I don't need any new parts or anything. I just need to be careful not to create too much of a kink. But that will just mean that the coolant will recirculate back into the engine rather than going into the heater core. So let's get started. If you look down there from the top, you'll see a white plug. So just undo that. If the car's hot, just be careful, wear gloves, and then just let it drain out. Make sure the radiator cap is off. And so we'll just let that drain, and then I will get on to the hoses. Coolant's been drained out. I've just removed most of the air intake just so I can get better access. So we've got clamps that are removed with pliers on the firewall, and then on the engine, don't know if you can see them, but they're screwed on hose clamps, which are far better, and I will see what condition they're in, and I might put on some new ones which I've just always had. So let's get these hoses off. Got the hoses off now, and we're just looking at the firewall where the coolant inlet and outlets are to the heater core, and the hoses just broke away. So as soon as I unclamped them, they just broke off. You can see here with the bottom one, I suspect that is actually the source of the leak. So it's leaking down from this point here, and that also makes me think it might be an easy fix if I can get some connectors, brass connectors, and reconnect some new hoses. That might solve it, but for now I'm just going to continue with the bypass. But yeah, so clear deterioration over 20 years and almost 600,000 Ks. I suppose it is understandable. Looking at the hoses now that they're off the car, that's the top hose into the heater core. I had to use the socket to unscrew that one, but it otherwise came off very easily. And then this is the bottom hose into the firewall, into the heater core, and then into the engine. That one just came off easily with a screwdriver and a pair of pliers. You can see there a clean break, so I suspect there was some kind of, and I'm only guessing here, some kind of inner connection, and yeah, it's just deteriorated and it's now causing the leak. A bit of a change of plans. Rather than actually reuse one of the existing hoses, so we're going to use the longest one to get enough of a bend without kinking. I actually have some heater hose that I had used on my wife's car. I'm going to use that instead. I will reuse these clamps. I just think that there's more strength in these compared to these ones that I also had lying around. So, new hose, existing clamps, and we should be back in business. Okay, so we've got a new hose on now, using the existing clamps. You can just see them there. Before I put the airbox back on, I'm just going to just spray some compressed air into the heater core to remove any residual coolant so that it doesn't drip down into the cabin. Then I'll refill the radiator with coolant and distilled water if I need it, which I thankfully also had in my shed, so I haven't had to run down to the auto store to get any parts for this. And then I'll just put the airbox back on, put the interior back in. It's been sitting out in the sun, drying out. I sprayed the underlay with vinegar. I don't think any mold was growing because I got onto this fairly quickly, but even so, I'm hoping that will also remove the smell. And I've also given the carpet a clean, as well as the seats, just because I had them out. So yeah, job done. For now, I won't need the heater until at least well into autumn next year, so I'm not concerned about not having a heater. So yeah, a pretty quick fix. Any questions or comments, leave them below, and as always, thanks for watching. Cheers. When your heater core leaks, this is what you need to do. Remove all the seats, carpet that's been in the sun all yesterday, upside down and then right ways to dry out the underlay. The mats are out, but they weren't wet. All these trims, with the exception of the vents, I took that out for another reason, but all these had to come out, and I washed these down. And then you've got to clean out the footwells. I just used soapy water and then left the doors open overnight for it to dry out. So everything's ready to go back in. The interior is back in. I'm just continuing to let it air out because I used some of that Novak carpet cleaner. So I just need it to off gas as well as dry out, but everything is back in.